Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining us and meet Menaka to celebrate you. Today, we have another great speaker, Rafael dos Santos. But before we dive into it and introduce him, this week has been the Mental Health Awareness Week, and the theme has been nature. What better time to have the theme nature? Because for the last year or so, we have been only been able to connect to nature. We have been finding it hard to connect with people, go places, and do really something adventurous. However, nature has been brought closer to us, and we are finding out the benefits of being in nature, in particular to mental health. So, as a mental health advocate, I am really conscious of the efforts taken by people who are advocating mental health awareness, firstly. Secondly, who are giving people the tools and to show how people can become resilient and have a fulfilling life. And someone who has written a book on resilience learned, and I cannot say more than that. So I think mental health is really an important part. All of us. I know for sure that Raphael also is very authentic and he speaks about it. But before we go diving into it, let me introduce today's speaker. A very warm welcome, Rafael dos Santos. He is the CEO and co-founder of GuidedPR.com. He is award-winning TEDx talk, What It Takes to Be a Migrant Entrepreneur, has been watched over 157K times. He has been helping migrants for over 10 years. Raphael's passion and dedication has led him to be listed on Sunday Times. He is also the 100 most inspiring entrepreneurs in the UK due to his work helping migrants improve their lives through entrepreneurship in the UK. And we were just having a chat before we came on air. And I know for sure prior to that, that he is also connected to Jimmy Choo. So, but we will dive into it later. Firstly, a very warm welcome, Rafael. And I know you as a friend. I met you quite a few years back now, 6 years, whether you believe it or not. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you for the invitation, and thanks everyone. I can see a few people have just joined. So thanks for the introduction there. It's a pleasure to be here, and I always, as you know, being in the communications field, I like talking. So I'll be open to a really good conversation. So by just to clarify, you will hear an accent, and I'm Brazilian originally, and I've been in the UK for 20 years. And my question to people when I ask them, are you a migrant or not? Because my TED talk is what it takes to be a migrant entrepreneur. And my question to people always is, if you come from a country, then normally you think that the food in your country is better than the food in the UK, you are a migrant. So let's put it that way.
In a nutshell, that's perfect explanation. So, as it's a mental health awareness, Rafael, I know, like myself, you speak about depression openly. What is the reason, and why do you think more people should come forward and speak about this?
Sure. So I think it's a hidden killer. That's the problem, right? Because nobody sees it. It's not like you have a broken arm, or that is very easy then for people to sympathize, um, and you never know really what is happening. I, as you know me, I'm outgoing. I'm a peacock, as they call it, and so center of attention, talkative, and people would never think, well, I never thought I would suffer from depression. And back in 2016, I had a big business, and then Brexit came, and then I lost my business, and I lost a lot of money. As an entrepreneur, it was the first time that I actually which then became this battle of, am I a failure? And I think a failure is what took me to then have my thoughts completely out of control, and it led me to being depressed. It was it only got to a point where I realized I was really depressed when I was pretending to go to the gym, and then as soon as my husband left to go to work, I would go back home and stay in bed. And then that got worse and worse. And then from being in bed and sleeping, I would then cry for no reason, until we got to a point where I never, I actually started thinking about suicide. And then I started calling Samaritans lots of times. And it was only then when I think it was about 3 months, I had not left the house. I would not leave the house. I was, it was really, it was terrible. And the way that I always explain to people, it was actually, I actually gave this interview, and I told them, for me, depression is like a mudslide. So that's the image for me that represents depression, because every time I had thoughts, and whatever thoughts I had, it was like it wouldn't work. Don't do this. This is scary. The fear and everything that comes. So I have this image of, if you imagine a mountain, and then it was raining a lot, and then the mudslide is coming down, and it was. So for me, this is, and it is absolutely terrifying, to have those thoughts again. But it was one day when I really thought, I had reached rock bottom, and I thought, I need to get out of this. I need to get out of this black hole. But it's so hard for you to make the decision. It's so hard for you to get out by yourself. It was actually a call with Samaritans. It was amazing, where, because there is no judgment and none of that, and it was anonymous, and I thought, I'll call and then to see. And then the woman said, I said, what haven't you, what would you like to do? And I said, I want to get out of the house. I haven't been, out for 3 months. I feel really ashamed of myself. I think I'm a failure. And then she said, why don't we go for a walk around the block? She said, we only do this together. And I said, I'll be here on the phone with you. And then I said, no. And it was amazing. Like, to walk, today it sounds so crazy, right? Because of everything that I'm doing. But it took me about 15 minutes, which normally take 2 minutes, to walk from the living room to the front door. And I was in tears, and I said, I can't, anyway. That day I actually managed to get out, because she was on the phone with me, and I was in tears. And then it was funny. The following day I called again, and I think it became like almost like a trigger. And then the third day I went by myself, and then slowly, and then I thought, okay, now I can look for help. And then I went to see a therapist, and then I started taking medication. And then I was against medication, for mental health. But then I think what a lot of people, if they have this preconception, or if you take medication for depression, you must be going crazy. I had all of this because of my culture, right? Because we don't talk about mental health in Brazil, right? So it's not something that it's openly talked about.
Nor do we speak about it in Asia. I can
Yeah,
actually,
so I suppose it's not it's a taboo, right? Oh, you're going crazy. Mental
yeah,
health is
of
for
course.
crazy people. That's what you hear when you're growing up. So I started taking medication, and what medication does is it lifts the dark cloud,
Sure.
and then you start thinking clearly again. And then I thought, oh, life is not so bad again. It took about 2 weeks for the medication to kick in. And then I start slowly going back to the gym, and then I start doing therapy. And today, my advice to people is, if you have a friend who suddenly disappeared, because I'm very outgoing. I'm on, I do lives and I do videos and I'm on social media all the time. If your friend suddenly disappeared, go and look for your friend.
Reach
Because
out.
the first thing that I did was, I didn't answer the phone anymore. I wasn't on WhatsApp anymore. I wasn't on social media. So the first sign that your friend must be suffering in silence is that your friend disappeared. And it's not, don't take it personal. Remove the ego, remove everything. It's like, it's not about you. It must be about your friend.
Sure.
And I was, very lucky to have amazing friend. I'm married, and my my best friend is a psychiatrist, and saw that very quickly that I really needed help. So I that's my advice to people. Okay,
Sure.
so don't suffer in silence alone, because silence is a killer. It is a real killer. So, and I know how difficult it is to talk. Okay.
Sure.
So make sure that, if you can't talk to a friend, because depression makes you feel embarrassed, it makes you feel humiliated, it brings all these bad feelings that you would never feel that if it wasn't the, depression, if it wasn't that, I don't know if it's called a disease. I don't know if it's a disease, it was an illness, but
It is
um,
definitely a illness. I think it's you feel sad, mad, and bad. That's what they say. So
right. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So that's it. So make sure that if you can't talk to friends or family, call Samaritans. And sometimes, in my case, I just wanted to cry, but not alone anymore. So I wanted to be able to talk to people. And so I was in that in about 9 months. So it took 9 months. And then I started taking medication. So I don't take medication anymore. Now I have a dog. I spill in the sun. So there is a lot that I do. So it's important that you have that. Oh, we have someone in on screen there. Hello. Um,
somebody took the attention away.
no worries. So yeah, so that's my journey with depression, and I spoke about that in my TED talk because it's not something that people talk about, because nobody talks about depression, because it's in many cultures, like you said, Menaka, in Asia and in South America, is a taboo, right? It's like, are you going crazy? Oh, you have mental problems, and so people don't admit. And the same way that I joke about being gay, and I know in a lot of cultures, is obviously depending on the talk. I don't make those jokes, but I think depending on the audience and who you're talking to, it's no longer a taboo. I'm gay, I'm married, I have a dog, I have a house, and I eat like everyone else. The only difference is who I sleep with, but it's none of anyone's business. But if I'm happy, I'm contributing to society, who cares who I'm sleeping with or not? So in the same way that I think talk openly about things if you feel comfortable. And for me, it's no longer about me and my depression. Now is about others. And if there is one person here today, and if that person was suffering, and I can help them and say, I was there and I'm no longer there. And if you are thinking about medication is only for crazy people, do not think that way, because the medication will
We have
remove
two
that bad
crazy people on the
cloud.
platform today, then for sure. If that's the case, we have two crazy people on the platform for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So that's my advice there, for depression, and you are not alone. I think that's the key for everyone to understand. And it's amazing, as soon as you share with one or two people, you will see how much help and love you get, because if there is any positive side of depression. But it's amazing how to people today, they truly understand how powerful and how destructible depression can be. So people are prepared to help, they're
Sure.
there to talk, they're there. So I think more and more people are removing this taboo that you are, oh, you're crazy. And because everybody knows, it doesn't matter how rich or poor, or if you are Muslim, or if you are a Catholic, or if you're black and white, depression can hit anyone. Just like coronavirus, right? You go all the
I was about to
politicians, and
say
you go into
most
royalty.
I was
Yeah,
about to say most democratic illness until coronavirus, COVID came
yeah,
along.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But
Yeah,
I think that's the key message there. You are
sure,
not alone. Look for
sure,
help, and people will show you love.
sure. Thank you, Raphael, because I spoke about breaking from the circle of darkness. It was about how I felt, and how I managed to get out of mental health illness and depression. And I think the more and more people who talk about it, bring the awareness, be happy to share the tools with people to make them go and ask for advice and accept the advice as well, both words. So I know today's show is not about that. So I know, as someone who had to migrate twice, first from Sri Lanka to India, then to the UK, I know it's not an easy path to taste success in a foreign land. Is there any advice you would like to offer? Not necessarily entrepreneurs, any driven, ambitious migrants in general, before we go into entrepreneurship itself?
Sure. So I always tell people that when you migrate, especially when you're an adult, right? So from 20 onwards, if you go to another country, you are going to be like a child in an adult's body. And I tell you why, because as a child, when you're growing up, you are unable to express yourself, right? So you don't have the words, you don't have the vocabulary, and it can be frustrating. That's why children cry, they can express themselves and they have their tantrums, and you will have that as a migrant when you don't speak the language. So when you move and you still have to learn, and the frustration that you are unable to express yourself. Like imagine 20 years ago, I couldn't speak English. I wouldn't be here talking to you all, right? So it's important, that is the first step. If you do speak the language, then the next step is the culture, because language and culture go hand in hand. You can't master a language if you don't understand the culture, and vice versa, because a lot of nuances of the language, a lot of the jokes, a lot of everything is around understanding the language and obviously understanding the culture. Like, for example, if you come to the UK, there are lots of jokes about Boris, and there are lots of jokes about people from, if you speak Cockney, or if you're from Liverpool. But if you don't understand, if you don't hear the accent, if you don't know, you're not going to find funny. So there is a barrier there. So it's really important to immerse yourself in the culture. Now, when you move, the people that are going to help you first are your people. So don't move thinking, oh, I'm not going to speak to Brazilians, I'm not going to speak to Indians, I'm not going to mix with Bangladeshi, because the people from your country are the ones that are going to give you the help first. Like my first job in the UK, it was because it was a Brazilian who was working and told me where to go and find. It was Brazilians who told me how the tube operated, or where to get cheap food, where things like that. So at the beginning, I know a lot of people move and say, oh, because I'm going to England or because I'm going to the US, I don't want to mix with my people, I don't want to speak my language. But before you impose that, be open to meeting people, because those who are going to embrace you and help you and then give an umbrella when it's raining are people that speak your language, are people that understand what you're going through, and those are people that have gone through already. Okay. There is always in a basket, there is always good and bad apples. Okay. So not everyone from your country is going to be wonderful and lovely, but there will be a lot of good people. There is more good than bad in the world. Okay. So trust people, and then trust the people from your country. So I love Brazilians because they helped me to get where I am. I went through a phase where now I need to improve my English. So it's not that I stopped talking to them, but I made an effort to get into the English culture, to mix much more. So now it's very balanced. I don't have a problem. I speak English, and I mix with everyone. If you look at my phone, I have about 6,000 people on my phone, and I have from cleaners to CEOs, right? So I have the CEO of Avon in Brazil, and I have cleaners and electric. So there is, for me, there is no such a thing as, oh, I won't speak to these people or that. It's important for you to have, because you will need everyone, trust me. You will need a cleaner at some point, an electrician at some point, a beautician, a driver. So you should be open to mixing with
Yeah.
people. So I think what makes success is that. And one more thing is about preconceptions. So when I was told I was coming to the UK.
Okay. So as you said, when you go to a new country, you have to be aware of the accent and the language. And this is something I have experienced. And that's why I guess it's become very easy to connect. And we became friends because we have kind of, in some way, we had similar backgrounds. We had to move. We were not the greatest in the language. I definitely didn't study in English till I went to dental school. So, we had so many common threads. And I totally understand. I think it is about expanding the circle rather than erasing and forming a new circle, isn't it?
Yes.
You can still be in your circle of people where you came from, but you can expand it further to people who and embrace other cultures and other people. I think. Do you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was so now. Thank you. You brought back my thoughts. Apologies, my morena made me lose my thoughts for a second. I think it's about preconceptions, right? So when I was in Brazil and I said I was coming to the UK, people told me, "Oh, British people are very cold. You're not going to make friends with them," right? And so what I learned now is that and my sister says that a lot, I don't listen to people. Because if you listen to people's experiences and you decide to adopt that experience as yours, even before you had the experience, I would have no British friends, because I would come here thinking, oh, they're all cold, I'm not going to speak to them. But instead, what I do is I talk to people with no barriers. For me, everyone is fun, everyone is nice. And as soon as you talk to people and you greet them with a big smile, and you're open and you're warm, how can people not be like that towards you? Obviously, I have met people who didn't like my peacock way of being, and like the too warm, and things like that. But I think if you don't have that preconception, you will see how much your circle, as just like Minaka said, how much your circle of people will expand. Um, I'll give a very brief example. We were in Russia. We're going to Russia. I was scared of going to Moscow because of what they say, about gays there, and I thought I'm going to be bashed on the street. And I took my ring off, all because of the media says. And I told my husband, I said, let's not do that. But as soon as I got there, we were having lunch, and then I saw another couple, which I thought was a gay couple, next to us, and then they were speaking English. And I said, oh, you guys speak English too. Long story short, he was a very famous journalist in Russia, and we met him, and he was a friend. And we talked and talked and talked, and said, oh, tomorrow there's a house party in my house. Do you want to come? So, I was on holiday, Thursday, having lunch. Friday, next day, I'm in this amazing house with lots of Russian people, and all because I'm open to the experience. I didn't go there thinking, oh, Russians are cold and Russians are going to bash me. Or I had a little bit of fear, but I was still open to it. And I think it's really important that you allow those experiences and don't have people's preconception of people, or color, or nationality.
Sure. Thanks, Raphael. I know you talk about owls and peacocks often, and you gave me this advice around 5 years, 6 years ago.
And it has served me very well. As professionals, particularly as healthcare professionals, we are hesitant to be visible.
I think I was the same when I met you first. So, can you share or elaborate on this with the audience, please? What is
Sure.
owls and peacock, and
I
why
was
it's important to be a peacock?
sure. So I always tell that my explanation is, when we are having events and I had stage, and the idea is professionals and entrepreneurs, normally for me, they're like owls, right? So what do owls represent? Let's see, because I know you have a Q&A here. Let's see if people in the audience are paying attention. What do owls represent in your culture? Can you write it down there so I understand? Owl, in case you don't understand, my accent is that bird with big eyes, okay, that you see. So any idea, can you tell me what you guys, what owls represent in your culture? If I get a thank you, we have a wisdom. That's the question. That's the answer that I was
Correct answer, whoever put it.
looking for. So owls represent wisdom. So they are very clever. They are very intelligent, right? But do you see owls everywhere? Do you see them, like, do you walk around and see lots of them? You don't. Owls hide, right? They're really good at what they do. They have amazing vision. Apparently, they're the only birds that can do 360 with their heads. We have all, lots of things about owls, but you don't see them everywhere. So what I tell them is, I say, owl, you're very good, you're very skilled, but people need to see you. So let me transform you into a peacock. Obviously, owls going to my go, oh my God, what do you mean? So, owls becoming peacocks means, what does that mean? If you see a peacock in a park, right, and the peacock has the tail open, what happens then? What if you see a peacock in a park and the peacock has the tail open, what do you do? Let's see if we get it. We get some responses here.
Everybody's attracted to the peacock.
Everyone
Beauty,
looks.
visibility.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. All the feathers come out. Yes, they do. Exactly. But what they do is they get attention. Everybody looks at them. Now, if you think of your profile as a professional or entrepreneur, if you think that every feather is an achievement, but there is no point in having an achievement that you don't show up, right? If you have a peacock with the tail down, it's not the same, it's not going to get as much attention as a peacock with the tail open. And that is the biggest difference. So when you show your tail, it means that you are more visible. And each feather is an achievement. Some feathers are bigger than others. For example, Menaka said that I have been listed on the Sunday Times top 100 most inspiring entrepreneurs in the UK, right? So it's one of my big peacock feathers. So if you think of my tail, that's a really long one, right? It's a big name, it's the top 100 in the country. But I have I have a course in SEO. I have a course in content marketing. It's one of my small feathers. Now, if you think of my profile, if you think of a peacock tail, you have the small feathers in the medium and the large ones. I have an MBA is one of my big peacock feathers, right? And so on. So now this is how you see your profile. And remember, you need knowing the right time and place to show off. So one of the things that I do is I help people, just like Menaka was in the media a lot, right? So I help people get in the media because showing your achievements in the media, when people want to do business with you or when they want to hire you, they will Google you. So for example, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people on the screen. Have you ever met someone and then after meeting them, you went on Google and searched for the person? Raise your hand. Okay, yeah, it's normally the majority, right? So if you go and search for me, for example, Rafael dos Santos, you will see hundreds of photos, hundreds of articles where I have been featured. So those are my peacock feathers. So when I tell people I can put you in the media, but then people go and search for me and they see me in the media, I'm walking my talk. So this is really, really important, okay? It's for you to understand there is a place and a time for you to be a peacock. And don't be afraid, because if you have the credentials, if you have the awards, if you have the courses, the degrees, the certificates, there is no reason why you should not be proud of yourself and showing that big peacock tail, okay? Um, Obviously, make sure that it is real. I had a client that I sent to the Guardian, want to do an interview, and he said he was a psychologist. The Guardian did research. He didn't finish university. Okay, don't get fake feathers because fake feathers don't work. Okay,
Yeah.
make sure they're real.
Thank you, Raphael, because I know I have to give this credit to you because I was an owl when I met you first. And Raphael almost twisted my arms to put my qualifications and my achievements out there and say, Menaka, you have to do it. Trust me, it will work. You have to, thank you so much for that. And I know it works. So thanks for that. So being a successful migrant entrepreneur and have done a TEDx on this topic, is there a difference between succeeding as an entrepreneur who is a local, for example, for us, perhaps British or otherwise, and as a migrant entrepreneur?
Sure. So I always get asked this question. I think when you are an entrepreneur, it's hard enough because you need to leave employment and start your business, and then there is that fear. When do I leave employment? Where will I always succeed? But when you're a migrant, there are other layers of difficulty until you get there. So as I mentioned earlier, you need to learn the language first, and then you need to learn the new culture. And once you have that, you then talking about the circle that you mentioned, Menaka, is your circle big enough for you to then make enough sales, right? And then there are lots of other things. Now that my husband arrived, my dog is leaving the room. I'm going to close the door. There we go. So it's important that you really see those skills that you have, if you are going to be a migrant entrepreneur. being a migrant entrepreneur, is it harder? Of course it is, because when you're born in the country, probably when you're 16, like when I was in Brazil, my mom goes to the bank, helps me to open a bank account. By the time I'm 22, 24, 25, I had a history in the bank for 10 years. When you move countries, you have no credit history. So there is no way for you to get a loan. There is no way for you to rely on anyone else but either your savings or borrowing from your friend for you to start. So is it hard? Of course it is harder, because you have those limitations. Like I remember, now I can say that publicly, I had to not lie. I'm going to use the word lie. Let's say I had to be creative to get a few things done, right? So because I was on a student visa, there are lots of things that I had to invite people to start the business in their name, but I was running it. So, you are creative, because you either do that or you don't survive, or you go back to your country, and then you do that in your country. But I always say, as long as it's legal and moral, you should be doing. So that's my advice.
Yeah. It's about being authentic, isn't it?
Yeah,
Being true to
exactly.
yourself. And I think it's really important. And I think that's something what I really admire about you. You are definitely the authentic leader. You say it as it is, whether, sometimes it's bitter, sometimes it's sweet, but you would say it anyway. So, which is really good. So, speaking about TEDx, I was
Yeah.
asked to apply in 2019, and I felt I was preoccupied with my book at that point and gave it a miss. On hindsight, it could have been a great opportunity. So, might be, or was it a excuse to hide my, imposter syndrome? That is for another day. What is the advice if someone feels they have a story worth sharing, Rafael? What do you think they should really do?
So on TEDx, like if they want to share their stories, you mean? Yeah,
Mhm.
I think the first thing is to understand what is your message is number one, right? So it took me a while to really understand what my message was, and then what you want to do is I always say fly the flag. So for example, I didn't want to fly the gay flag because it wasn't for me. Like I didn't have to fight for gay rights, like it's not me, even though I think it's part of me, but it's not the flag that I want to fly. Not because I'm embarrassed or anything, but it just wasn't. Like I could get married and I have a normal relationship, and so I passed that. But I think what for me was very important is to understand what is the bigger message. What else? What can I do to help others? And for me was moving countries, not speaking the language, learning, and then going from what I call poverty. I think poverty can be, very subjective
Subjective.
depending the country where you are, but where maybe it's a bit strong poverty, but I didn't have much resources.
Underprivileged, underprivileged.
Very, yes. When I first arrived in London, I didn't have money to, I didn't have money to use the tube. I was on sandwiches for like 6 months. It was hard. But I think what is really, really important there is once you find your place and you find your message, and you talked about that, is being authentic. So when I talk about migration, I'm passionate about it because I changed my life becoming an entrepreneur. And then for me is, if I can do it, and I couldn't speak English and I had no qualifications when I arrived, and now I have an MBA and I've done this and that, but it's because I invested and because I know I'm capable, and I know everyone else can be, as long as you believe it and as long as you network it, because there is no such thing as self-made. I don't like this expression, oh, she's a self-made millionaire, he's a self. No, you are not. For you to get to that point, hundreds of people helped you. I think there is an expression to raise, it takes what is the expression, it takes village to raise a child, right? It takes hundreds of people to make a millionaire, right? You need a really good graphic designer, you need someone doing videos, you need someone doing your accounts, you need to do some of your bookkeeping. So don't come to me and say, obviously it's all your credit. You go, you create, you work, you sell, you build. But for you to do that, right? You have so much, like, for example, my sister is my operations manager. And I always say, even though she doesn't like the limelight, she doesn't, thank God, she doesn't want to be a peacock, otherwise it would be a fight. So I have my owl sitting here next to me saying, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? The detail. So it's really, really important, right, to have that. So it's, I think for you, uh, um, find your message, be authentic, okay? Because that message will wake you up in the morning. That message, when you talk, people want to hear, because there is so much passion and love and knowledge, because you will read about it, and you want to invest time reading, watching things, and getting more information. Like, for example, the migrant, I created a report with the Institute of Directors. I launched the House of Parliament. I was all over the media, in Financial Times, in the Guardian. But it was a report that, for me, I didn't do because I want to be all over the media. I wanted to show the media that migrants give much more than they take. There are more
Completely.
migrants
100%.
employed.
This is a passionate topic for me. 100%. Can you tell that again, please?
Yeah, exactly. Because this became my sentence. Migrants give much more than they take, because we bring amazing food, we bring language, we bring culture, we bring food, we bring dance. Well, Brazil brings thongs and feathers and everything else, but let's leave it there on the side. But there is lots of really good things that migrants bring, right? And to a lot of people, like my husband, love. And so why not embrace migration in a positive way? And migrant entrepreneurs contribute much more, because we are now creating jobs, we are creating companies, and we pay tax twice. So we have corporation tax, and we are employing people who are paying tax too. So there are, and if you look at the statistics, 14% of businesses in the UK are owned by migrants, right? Stephen Jobs was the son of a migrant in the US. One of the founders of Google is a migrant. So that is much more positive to migration than negatives. And unfortunately, the media concentrates so much on the negative and people on benefits and all that BS, if you excuse my French. But it's important that people see, again, that we give much more than we take.
Sure. Thank you, Rafael, because as I said, this is a topic close to my heart because I'm a migrant, firstly. And, I think I am a combination between being a professional and an entrepreneur. I think it's in my blood. So, I think it's really, really important for people to understand the barriers and how they can overcome it, and also to understand how much, as migrant entrepreneurs, a migrant profession, how much we contribute to the, not only to the economy, to the society. And definitely COVID
Yes.
has brought light to it.
Yes. So just a very brief explanation here, so people understand the difference between migrants, immigrants, and refugees, because a lot of people think, for example, I'm running a big event in the online, but a big event in the US. There are 8 states involved with the Brazilian community. And it was very funny when I wrote an article, I gave an interview and I said migrants. And in the US, the word migrant is very negative. And in the UK, the word immigrant is always followed by illegal. If you always read the news, is an illegal immigrant, is illegal. So just for everyone to understand, a migrant is a person who chooses to leave the country. They choose to go where they want to go, and they can choose to leave whenever they want, but they are not permanent. So that's why I say I'm a migrant, because I don't plan to stay in the UK forever. In my 60s, I want to go to the south of France or Brazil. I want to go somewhere hot and drink nice wine. But I'm not an immigrant. So an immigrant is a person who chooses to move permanently and then is not going to leave. So they know they want to stay there, right? So that's the biggest difference. And another expression is refugees, right? So refugee is someone who doesn't have the choice. They are running because of war. They are running because of, there are so many problems why people decided to, well, they don't decide to leave, they have to leave their countries, right? So it's not simply because they want to take advantage of someone else's country. So these are the 3 expressions that people need to understand the difference. And that's why I use the word migrant, because you have the choice, right? So normally it's economic migrants. So it's people who they have good jobs, and they decided to go to another country to learn the language and all that. Okay, so I think I just want to clarify that, so we know, those three words that are used, and the media unfortunately uses in a very negative way.
Sure. Thank you, Rafael. But I think even as migrants, people move for different things, because as Asians, a lot of people can relate to it. A lot of people get married and come, and not because they are economical migrant per se. And I know some of them are on this platform today who have moved here, moved here because they got married. And I moved to India because of the war. But however, I was not a refugee because I paid the fees and I went to study. So I think you it's very important, like you said, not to put people in the boxes and to
Mhm.
understand the background behind it. So I know, Rafael, for sure, you are a successful business owner.
Yes.
Like me, strangely enough, we both had the biggest failures, I guess, in 2016, and I went through the rabbit hole of mental health issue around the same time. So, but I know that you have re-emerged and become even more successful than before. So, what is your advice for others when they want to launch a business successfully?
Sure. So I think what is really important for people to understand is is this idea of fear and failure. Because, for example, when as entrepreneurs, when something doesn't work, we criticize ourselves so much as entrepreneurs. We go into this idea of what is failure, right? So I still do therapy and I talk openly about it, because for me, doing therapy is like doing personal training, right? I'm exercising my brain and I'm talking, and so I don't have any issues. So one of the reasons why now I'm becoming more successful, like for example, I'm running, just to have an idea, I'm running 3 events. So I run one event in Europe where I involved 14 countries, and I'm running in one in the US where I have 8 states in the US. Um, to be able to have the headspace for that, I do my therapy on Mondays. And Vanda, I call her Vanda, is my savior. I was like, because sometimes I talk to her and I say, "Do you think I'm crazy?" She's like, "No, no, I think you're fine." but it's but it's important, to have that person, to that professional. I always say that if you imagine your head is a bowl of spaghetti, the coach or the therapist, or it will pull one of the spaghetti and then will feel that is not so entangled anymore. And slowly you will start pulling those spaghettis. And then you realize it's like, okay, so maybe your head is not so messed up as you think, right? But it's really, really important for you to give yourself the option of doing that without judgment. So I do therapy because I love it, in the same way that I do personal training. I have no problem talking about it, and if you think this is craziness, that's your judgment, not mine, because I now feel wonderful about it, and it's what makes me achieve more. But now if you want to, I think what if you it's all your relationship. Like I had a huge problem with the word failure, right? Now I deal with it and I know, well, it didn't work, and this is what I learned, and this is how I see it. And if you see in a way that it was a learn, it could have been a painful way of learning, an expensive way of learning. There are many other words you can add beforehand, but if you see it as a positive, I know it's bad, I know you've going through pain, and I know, but you need to move on quickly for you to be able to get to a better state. And I think it's really, really important, and you can only do that by having professionals around you. The moment you remove all those barriers and all those thoughts and those judgments that have been given to you, because if you think of that way, it's because someone gave to you, right? Your culture, your parents, your friends. So the people around you are going to be very important to make you successful. Now, what makes people successful, I think, number one is network. Your network is your net worth. And there is no such thing as, self-made. That's why it's important that you surround yourself not only with people that you want to get to, but people that you can rely on, that can listen to you. Because, for example, I have friends who I know I can call at 2 in the morning to cry. I have friends that I can call to go clubbing, but I can call them at 2 in the morning to cry. So, you have different friends for different things, right? And the same way that you're going to need different professionals. So there is no problem, you're not going to be, you're not going to have intimacy in terms of friendship or relationship with everyone, as long as you understand. If you think that if you look at your friendships or your network as little drawers, some drawers are really deep because people know you so well. And those people, you don't talk about business with them because they know the feelings, they know you so well. So, they're not the right people. But some people, they're business experts. You're not going to go call them and say that you found out that your wife is cheating on you. They're not the right person. So choose the right drawer to open to talk to to the right person. So your network is what is going to make you successful. I think that's the number one. Number two is finding the right business. So what is it? I love media. I love being in the media. I love being the center of attention. So I created a business that gives people this feeling that I have. I love when I see myself on Forbes, right? It's my big peacock tail, open up, and it goes crazy. It's like, oh, if you think of a peacock going like mad, that's me when I see myself in Forbes. And because I know the feeling, I know how wonderful, I know the adrenaline, I know what it gives to me. I want to give it to others. So I created a business that I know how Menaka is going to feel when I call Menaka and say, Menaka, have you seen yourself in the media? And I know what she's going to feel. She's going to get goosebumps. She's going to be really happy. She's going to share everywhere because it will make her happy. The moment you create a business that you know where you're giving to people, that is, I think for me, is fulfillment. That's when and you shouldn't feel bad about charging people because you're doing something that you love, and obviously you need to pay your mortgage and you need to eat and you need to travel and you need to look good with your peacock clothes, so you need to charge them. But you are charging because you know you can give to people, and I think it's really important. So network, find your passion, your niche that you want to give, and have the right message. So just like we're talking about, the migrant message, and obviously the profile and media message, right? So it's important that you find that. So I think those three things for people to remember: network, okay, your niche, or including your passion, and your message. I think this is what makes success.
Sure. Thank you so much. So much for your peacock feathers. I was about to ask the next thing. You recently posted about Oscar. How can you motivate our audience to get involved in something like
Oh,
that?
I hold on. Let me open up my peacock tail again, because we'll talk about the Oscars now. So I run High Profile Magazine, as you can see my background here. So I started High Profile magazine about 3 years ago, and this year it's funny, isn't it? You think, because I used to print the magazine and I had one business model, and then COVID comes and you think, oh, I was in tears for first week, oh, everything's going to collapse. And then you think, okay, maybe I just have to adapt. So I went from a print magazine to an online magazine, and I went from it used to be quarterly and we printed 20,000 magazines. Now it's about 10,000 views a week. So it's not too bad when you think, how can I change? Because now, I had Oprah on the cover, I had Michelle Obama, I had Jimmy Choo. Our latest one was Sarah Jessica Parker, who is really good friends of
Mm.
West Pros.
Your network, I think, is playing up.
Am I back?
Yes, you are.
It says my internet is unstable. I thought it was
Unstable.
only me that was unstable. So clearly my internet is unstable too. So I'm so sorry.
I'm glad
Clearly it runs here. You see, you think that only humans are unstable. There we go. I'm going to give my pills to my computer to see if my internet gets stable again. I'm going to talk to my therapist to see if my internet can do some sessions. So I was talking about, so the Oscars. And it took a while, but I applied, and then I thought, you know what, why not? I'm going to apply to become a media partner in Hollywood with the Oscars. I had Michelle Obama, and I had, as I said, Sarah Jessica
Oprah
Parker, and all
Winfrey.
those people. Huh?
Oprah Winfrey.
Oprah, yeah. So Oprah was. So if I can have those, why can't I be a media partner of the Oscars? It took a year, but then just before the Oscars came, I got an email, and it's like, so now my magazine is one of the media partners of the Oscars. And next year you will see me there in the red carpet because I can cover it. So I got the invitation. So I couldn't be there this year. So thank you. I know if you think if you could see me now, my feathers are so big, you have no idea. But it is this amazing feeling that I can do things. The only thing that stops me from getting there, it was myself. I never applied because no one is going to do that for me, right? And if they say no, the only thing that I will lose is nothing because I didn't have this before. So the idea is everything is in our heads. If you want to get something, the idea is if you don't have it, like for example, I had no connection with the Oscars and then I applied. If they said no, have I lost anything? No, because I didn't have it. But now I have this as part of my profile, and I can say I'm a media partner with the Oscars. Like, how many people can say, or how many magazines can say that, right? So my advice to people is, if you are not achieving what you want, it's because either you haven't tried, you haven't asked, or you haven't applied, because there is no other reason. Because only you can get where you want. And remember, the no you already have. When you ask, is the other 50%, could they say yes?
I think it's daring to dream and ask, isn't
Yeah,
it?
but it's not just about dreaming though, because obviously I thought about it, but dreaming is one thing, but taking action is key. All right. So I'll give you an explanation. I had one of my sessions with the therapist. It was about fear. And then this idea of fear that we have is like, oh, and then it was amazing. So she gave me this exercise and she said, okay, let's imagine that it's a huge lake, huge lake. And in the middle of the lake, it has, so let's put the Oscars, right? It has the Oscars, and you want to be a media partner with them. And to get there, it's about 1 kilometer of water in this river. And at the very edge, there is a boat. And you need to get onto this boat to be able to get to the middle of the lake so you can reach the Oscars. Now, when you get on the boat, a lot of things could happen. The boat could have a hole and you could drown. On the way there, there could be a huge tornado, or I don't know, if it's a sail, the wind can stop, or if it's petrol, the petrol could stop, or none of this could happen, and then you get there and you get the Oscars. And the exercise, and it's amazing how simple it is for you to get over the fear. She said, do you know what the opposite of fear is? Does anyone know? What is the opposite of fear?
Success.
No. What is
Okay.
the opposite of fear? Let's see if I can get, what is the opposite of fear? Let's see if I can get brave. No. The opposite of fear is action. Because fear stops you from doing whatever you were thinking or dreaming. So fear is what stops you from getting on that boat. Fear of the petrol finishing, or fear of the tornado, and fear of whatever it is. Now, if you put that into perspective of your life, that you want to do something and that thing is in the middle of that lake, from now on, think of that boat. Because what is stopping you from getting to that boat is the fear of humiliation, fear of people talking, fear of height, fear of whatever it is.
Judgment.
Exactly. But the fear is stopping you. The moment that you took action and got into that boat, whatever happens on the way there, if the boat stops, you have to swim. Put a life, what's it called? A life vest. So you have to find alternative, because if you really want that, you will find a way. When there's a will, there's a way. Okay. So remember that every time you are in a situation, because that's what I think. And it's very funny because sometimes I send her a message and say, I just got onto a boat. And it's amazing. And then she says, and how was the trip? I said, I'm still going through it. So it's this amazing conversation that I can have with her where, and the Oscars, it was a boat, but it was a trip they started a year ago, right? It took a year for them. But you know what I think it was is they were waiting to see how my magazine was going to develop. And when they saw Oscars on the cover, Oprah on the cover, Michelle Obama on the cover, and they thought, do you know what? This guy is making it happen, right? So they wouldn't give it to me. So it wasn't just applying, but taking action on doing other things so I can get there. So my advice is get on that boat.
Sure. I totally agree, and I think we are going to go over time. But Raphael, I can listen to you for sure. So I'm Simon Sinek. Most of you might have heard, and if not, please go and have a look at it. His talks, and he speaks about it. He says that some people look at the goal and dream, or some people look at what is stopping them from getting there, why it's difficult. So he talks about going for a bagel in a park, and he could only see the bagel, whereas his friend could only see the long queue, which is to get there. So I think it's exactly to the point. And it is, I think what you're trying to say is keep the focus on the bagel and just join the queue as much as possible.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So this is going to be the last question for you, because I think we are running out of time. But I know Brazil Award has been recognized by Forbes magazine,
Yes.
and I just saw your post today. And so I have to touch upon this before we wrap it up. How did you get involved, and what made it possible?
Sure. So, what made how did I get involved and how I made it possible was me. So that's it was my idea. And what I wanted is I wanted something. You won 2 awards in the House of Parliament. So I run the Migrant Entrepreneur Awards, and Menaka won. It was the Entrepreneur of the Year, and what was the other one?
And service entrepreneur.
Service entrepreneur, exactly. So the idea was I wanted to bring to the Brazilian community this idea of achieve success, celebrate success. So I wanted to unite and award the Brazilian community living abroad. But being me, I didn't want to do something small. I wanted to do something quite big. So the first event that I did was the Best of Brazil European Awards. It was going to be inside of House of Parliament, but then coronavirus came. But not everything is bad. So instead of doing it in the House of Parliament, I did online. I had 4,500 people watching the event live on Facebook for 3.5 hours. I was amazed, right? So after that, the Brazilian TV got in touch. I have now a celebrity who is a really good friend of mine. So, Luisa Brunet, like household name. Because of that, then people in the US contacted me and said, oh my God, this is amazing. I had 14, I had Brazilians from 14 European countries competing. It was incredible. So I'm now running in the US. But what I wanted is, after I started the US, I thought, you know what? I did Europe, I did the US. Why not do a global event? So now I'm running the Best of Brazil Global Awards, where people need to vote. And imagine if you are Brazilian, and you are coming to London and you are going to the Kensington Palace. So that's where my event is going to be. And you leave the palace with a trophy that says best Brazilian restaurant in the world, best Brazilian professional in health in the world, voted by the people. So this is what I created. So I created something that is way bigger and beyond me, but I think it is successful because I'm elevating people. I'm not doing it because it's me. I'm doing because I want to tell others, celebrate success, apply, see the votes so you can see how much people like you. I want to explain very briefly. In my awards, people are nominated. So let's say Menaka, you're nominated. For me to vote for you, I need to put there my name, email, and I need to write why I'm voting. And once I say why, then it will show on your wall in the event, why people are voting for you. Some people, like there is a Brazilian singer, she has 700 messages of adoration, celebration, congratulations. Now, what I created to people, it was love. it's all this love that people are giving to them. So today, just before I can hear this Brazilian woman sending me she was in tears. She said, what you created and all these messages that I'm receiving, from people is amazing. And she was in tears. And I said, look, I haven't created this, people send you the message. I'm just the enabler. And I think as soon as you enable people to do better, to be loved, to achieve more, you create this amazing energy that comes back to you. So it's not, I didn't think, oh, I'm going to create it because I'm going to be really, really successful. I thought I'm going to create for the Brazilian community so they can feel what I feel when I win awards, when I can see that. And obviously the result is like fire, right? You start playing with fire and then you don't understand, and suddenly it became this huge, big thing. But so this is what the Best of Brazil Award is. So it's called the bestofbrazilawards.com. That's the website. So it's going to be this amazing event in Kensington Palace in October.
Thank you, Rafael. And I think I'm going to wrap it up, and then, of course, we are going to take questions after that. But before that, I want to tell two things, really. It is about failing forward. John Maxwell talks about this all the time. And I remember very precisely when the COVID-19 situation started, I sent you a message and you said, yes, it is extremely stressful. My entire business has almost come to standstill. And look what you have done in these 18 months. And, I think it is racing from it and making it possible. And the second thing I wanted to say is you're really a great enabler, because when I was nominated for the award, that's the first time I came to know Rafael. I didn't know Rafael before that. And I knew Rafael, but obviously I've heard about him, but I never had a conversation as such. When the nomination was going through, because as Rafael said, these things started to happen a year or two before actually it happens. I was in Sri Lanka. I had gone to see my parents, and the infamous bomb blast happened. And so I was there as the nominations were going through, and I think I was really surprised that I got 475 votes or something. And when I came back and I called Rafael and I said, look, I just landed and this is what happened, and my frame of mind is totally different. Rafael said, Menaka, you're just coming. That's it. Forget about, just be there. So I'm so glad I went there. So first of all, it was a surprise to go to the Service Entrepreneur Award. And actually, I was so in tears when I got to know that I was the Entrepreneur of the Year. It is beyond my, any kind of imagination, because as I say often, I'm a small town girl who didn't even study in English till I went to, dental school, and had a lot of failures. And particularly, I was going through a very rough patch around that time. So, it made me, daring to dream again. And I also wanted to share this more than anything else. I wanted to give hope to other people like me who come from nowhere, who have language difficulties, or who have other failures in their life, to say and show that it is possible. It is possible to start again and become something. And I really feel obliged to you for that, because thank you so much once again, because that's what when you do something for other people, it goes beyond that day or that year, and something else. We had another interaction about something else a few months back, and Rafael said, Menaka, this is why I like to work with you, because you're very authentic and you will always kind of show up at the end. And I think that's how you create relationships and maintain it, and the network, you nourish them, isn't it? That's what I wanted to say. So before we go and wrap it up, I'm going to introduce the next week's speaker, and then we'll go from there. So next week, it is going to be our 42nd episode, Successful Career Transition, with Rohan Mehra, another friend of mine. He was the president of Toastmasters when I was the VPE of education in the same club. So we got to know them quite well. And I'm proud that he's also part of the committee for Meet Menaka. He's also an entrepreneur, and he's a soft skills expert, a trainer, an educator, and certified by Pearson Education and from IIM. And we know so much more to tell about him. We can go on for a long time if you want to tell. So before we wrap it up, I hand it over to Julie Tushingham to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Menaka, and thank you everyone who has joined us today for what I have found to be an uplifting and highly motivating discussion. Thank you so much, Raphael, for being the sunshine in a rather gloomy, cloudy day in London or England, wherever you are. It's been a fantastic experience to share this time with you, and we all really appreciate you enabling us to glimpse your world and be part of it. So thank you. And thanks to Menaka for hosting such a super speaker. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Once again, a big, huge thank you, Raphael, for you, because I know you are in the midst of 3 meetings. I know till almost 12 o'clock in the midnight, Raphael was in the meeting when we were texting each other, and this morning, so that in case I don't believe, he would actually send a screenshot that he was in Jimmy Choo's meeting for me. He said, Menaka, I will be there, but I'm in this meeting. And so with such a busy schedule, I'm really, really thankful for you for coming, and I'm really honored to call you as a friend. So thank you, Raphael. And for people who, thank you, Raphael. For people who are watching us on Facebook, because we are going to go on and get the questions from the audience. However, for people who are watching us and joining us in Facebook, thank you so much for joining us. Until we see you next time, same place, to talk about successful career transition with Rohan Mehra. Stay safe, be happy, and keep smiling.